Hello, my name is Bartosz Lutostański. I'm a PhD and I work in Warsaw's Institute of English Studies. In my following talk, I will present selected sections of a research I have recently co-authored with my colleague Magdalena Rembowska-Płuciennik, also present at this conference. What I mean by selected sections of our research is primarily the focus on the formal and semiotic characteristics of app fiction exemplified by Eli Horowitz's The Pickle Index from 2015. The history of digital fiction is typically divided into four phases: hypertext, multimodal and multimedia fiction, cybertext, and social media literature. Recently, we have been witnessing a paradigm shift. This shift has to do with the extensive use of a smartphone and/or tablet applications as a dominant storytelling medium. There is some research having been carried out in a broad area of the storytelling practices, quote, on the smaller screens of laptops, tablets, and even mobile phones, end of quote. However, no serious and sustained work on formal and semiotic features of this type of fiction has really been attempted. At the same time, recent years have seen a number of artistically and critically acclaimed app novels published, with the main examples being The Pickle Index by Eli Horowitz, Arcadia by Iain Pears, and Belgravia by Julian Fellowes. App fiction arguably is the fifth generation of digital fiction, determined by the technological resources and affordances offered by downloadable apps and operable from a smartphone or a tablet, heretofore overlooked in major discussions on digital fiction. In my talk, I will focus exclusively on the Pickle Index as a novel in an app and explore its interface, mechanics, genres and styles, modalities and media, reception roles, and immersion types. First of all, though, the Pickle Index tells the tale of a circus troupe in search of their boss and ringleader, Zloty Kornblatt. One night, Zloty gets apprehended by the state police and transported to Destina's most formidable prison. His troop sets out to find and release him. Alas, they fail and end up in one cell with Zloty, scheduled to be executed the following day. Eventually, the group is delivered from imminent death by ingenious tortures when the audience recognizes Zloty and his friends from a series of secret social media posts authored by Flora Bialy, a member of Zloty's troupe. In a truly revelation twist of events, the execution, instead of a bloodbath, becomes a sort of "I've got talent" celebrations and leads to the toppling of the authoritarian regime. The Pickle Index app is designed as a story world component. It becomes the ontological and diegetic boundary between the reality of the reader and the reality of the story. Its general architecture resembles a Manovichian database, with narratives constituting only one component out of many, including maps, drawings, photographs, etc., etc. The app's interface is multimodal and interactive. On opening it, the user enters the story world and sees a circle divided into three equal segments, representing the three main features of the app: today, cookbook, and the index. The overall palette is warm, green, brown, and yellow hues dominating. They bring to mind the colors of the pickles ready to consume. The interface is kludgy, as one critic said, simplistic or even primitive, but there's a reason for that. It is an official state-run and state-controlled app. It is to buttress the government in power by disseminating state-sanctioned information and focusing citizen attention on production and consumption of pickled foods. At the same time, the app functions as a mass surveillance and data harvesting machine. Every new reader on registering is to log in and automatically becomes a citizen of Destina. The app thus controls its users by projecting their behavior. We are limited to reading official press releases, receiving Pickle Index, and posting our own. Finally, it observes how much we use the app and how, and it calculates the so-called citizen quotient, CQ. This figure serves to gauge and quantify our citizenship performance. Failing to act appropriately might trigger, quote, official loyalty procedures, End of quote. The Today section comprises 10 articles from the Daily Scrutinizer, a local newspaper which releases official propagandistic reports of events centered around Zloty and his public trial. The articles are epitomes of propaganda, journalism determined by political ends and presenting the characters as traitors and enemies of the state. In the course of 10 days, we receive on one article a day every morning. The Index is a social networking platform in which citizens publish their pickle recipes. When we click on a recipe, it gets sent to the cookbook section. The cookbook thus becomes our personalized pickle recipe book. However, Flora, instead of a recipe, posts accounts of each ensuing day and thus breaks the law. In order to deceive the censors, she always heads the posts with a relevant title suggestive of a recipe and even follows the pattern of filling in the ingredients and instructions sections. Flora's daily autobiographic and diaristic posts combine to create a dialogue with the official news from the Scrutinizer of two opposing perspectives on what is happening to Zloty and in Destina. Towards the novel's closing, the state's official version of reality becomes undermined and overthrown by Flora's when the accidental or intentional readers of her illicit entries speak up against the state's fabrications during the execution scene. In this way, the Pickle Index, designed as a social networking site by the authorities, becomes indispensable for a revolutionary, albeit spontaneous, uprising against the authoritarian state. We practically partake as users of the app in it when downloading, reading, or sharing Flora's narratives. Now, the app controls the reading process. Every day it sends the two sections in an alternate manner and excludes our access to the future chapters. The reading becomes serialized and in line with the theory propounded by Jason Mitchell and others. The prescribed time gaps are vital for story world construction and reading experience. The app creates a time frame for the story development as each chapter involves events from a separate day. In this realist gesture, we learn about events in a chronological, day-to-day fashion. In addition, the app structures the reading experience. The readers are aware from the outset that the novel is a 10-day story, because that's what the novel says in its subtitle. Therefore, the experience is tightly organized and future-oriented. And finally, waiting for the arrival of the latest installment, the reader can and must, as already implied, engage with the app. Consequently, the story world construction as well as reading experience turn out to be closely and coherently integrated. The ontology of the Pickle Index as an app fiction designs a triple reception role based on the reader's expected engagement with the digital environment. Firstly, the receiver of the Pickle Index is a reader, not unlike any reader of the literary text. We receive an installment of the narrative via the app and read it on the screen of our phone. Secondly, the receiver is a player. We get a role to play on the registering. The Pickle Index thus exhibits the role-playing game features. And in combination with the literary features, the app might be categorized as a ludo-literary hybrid. Its vital logic component is interactivity, defined as a dialogue between mind and machine, as Marie-Laure Ryan defines it. Using Ryan's typology, we can construe the interactivity as internal and exploratory. This combination aims to imitate life in an authoritarian state. There is, however, a significant extension to this typical employment of interactivity in the form of collaboration between the other players within the story world. The ecology of the Pickle Index app relies on the user's input and acknowledges it by awarding points or issuing warnings. Consequently, the users entertain a significant degree of ontological interactivity as well. The third reception role combines the previous two and highlights the haptic dimension of the app. The user is required to maintain a close physical contact with the machine throughout the prescribed 10 days. By being literally in touch with the app in the way it is designed to, we come into a kind of symbiosis with the digital environment through touch and sight. The three reception roles refer to three distinct types of immersion in an app novel. The first type is phenomenological immersion, a term adapted from Anne Mangan, who understands it as a quote, largely the product of our own mental cognitive abilities to create the fictive virtual world from the symbolic representations, end of quote. It is the narrative is in the Pickle Index is stripped bare of multimedia and multimodal bells and whistles and devoid of typically hypertextual hyperlinks and lexias. Therefore, the app offers an undisturbed and non-intrusive reading experience. The point of the traditional and simplistic interface is admittedly to help the reader focus on the story as well as possible in order to make the material support of the novel, the app, ideally transparent. The becoming of a subject in a fictional authoritarian state on registering pertains to the player role determined by the app, which in turn refers to the technological immersion, another term we have from Mangan. Quote, this kind of immersion facilitates a sense of being immersed in a fictional virtual, in the literal sense of the word, world which is to a large extent created and sustained by the technological features and material devices involved in its display. And finally, the third immersion type, related to the user role, we call haptic. It is derived from an intense physical sight and touch-based interaction with the app. We physically perform a host of activities that entail a specific repertoire of gestures and actions, so-called gestines. Scrolling, swiping, clicking, typing, you name it. As a result, the haptic dimension becomes fundamental for the general experience of the novel through the digital medium. Touch, in conjunction with traditional acknowledged sight, forms an extremely important sensorial component of the experience and, by extension, of the semiotic modality of the novel. To conclude, the Pickle Index exemplifies the new genre of digital fiction, the app novel, for three main reasons. It employs traditional literary repertoire of genre, styles, and forms in an equally familiar serialized format. Its key feature is gamification, incorporation of ludic features in order to transform the reception process into interactive, engaging, and participatory. As a result, when we download an app, we immerse in the phenomenological, technological, and haptic dimension of it, and are required to acquire a triple role of readers, players, and users at the same time. A fundamental addition to fiction in general and digital fiction in particular is the new semantic resource at work in the app fiction, touch. In my future research, I intend to carry out a more extensive analysis of this mode against the backdrop of the general ontology of app fiction. But that's for the future. But for now, thank you very much for your attention.